My several apartments, a paean to the external author, shimmying around the text, the waist, the shins. To the objects, which are being carried in like manner, for the manner dies with the matter. Picture the posses of women armed only with their garden hoes, who go up into the hills to find the snakes in their dens and chop off their heads. How many people make plans to go up into the hills to harvest the laden orchards of the old family farms, or to gather wild berries or greens? All the old women who venture out in packs salivating over ramps and a dozen named varieties of weeds, as if they embodied desire itself. Imagine, in short, how culture in an occupied, betrayed, fragmented, and finally deserted place might become not a corpus of abstract ideas or grounded traditions, but a shifting and nervous space of desire immanent in lost and remembered things. Imagine a world that dwells in the space of the gap, in a logic of negations, surprise, contingency, roadblock, and perpetual incompletion. Picture how it gives itself over to 1,000 plateaus of intensification and becomes a kind of anticipation, a mode of questioning the world, an incessant search. Peripheral writing assumes the text as a theoretical locus, then subsumes it, a vision of the unconscious impulse uniquely throbbed as output. An ethnography of writing looks like the Appalachian foothills over a parking lot, a rose bed on a cinder block. The name became important when the Mail entered the business. They built a reputation on their name. A woman might call the shop Vanity Fair or Highlight. For a man, it's more important that he retains his name. What are you called? Hazel. She's just called Hazel, her husband adds. I worked for a Mr. Maurice in Florida, and all of us were known as Miss. He renamed me Miss Raina because he didn't like Hazel. On February 24th, I will deliver a paper entitled The Fugitive Fugitive, Law Writing and the New Critical Trajectory, which traces a tire-swing-worthy branch of the development of creative criticism. This paper accounts for the poet and critic Laura Riding Jackson's contribution to the critical dialectic as it evolved over mint juleps on the second-story porch of Ben Folly. A member of the fortuitous Nashville Assembly in the 1920s, Riding Jackson co-wrote a survey of modernist poetry with Robert Graves that springs and splits from the work of Robert Penn Warren and Clanth Brooks. Their aesthetic conversations would prove a major influence on the current study of literature, not only because they edited anthologies deterministic of the canon, but also because their critical impulse was a byproduct of the Academy bringing critics and writers together in English departments. Even traditional poetry, it is sometimes charged, has a tendency to withdraw itself from the plain reader, but the sophistications of advanced modern poetry only make the breach wider. In the poetry of E. E. Cummings, for example, who may be considered conveniently to illustrate the divorce of advanced contemporary poetry from the common sense standards of ordinary intelligence, is to be found apparently not only a disregard of this intelligence, but an insult to it. What we have to do, then, is to discover whether or not the poet means to keep the public out. If, after a careful examination of poems that seem to be only part of the game of highbrow baiting lowbrow, they still resist all reasonable efforts, then we must conclude that such work is, after all, merely a joke at the plain reader's expense, and let him return to his newspapers and his Shakespeare, who we are for the moment assuming is understood without difficulty. We're late, but squirrel, with only one eye, scurried past. As for the three universals, first is the universal of one atom pervading the universe. This means that an atom has no inherent nature. It involves all reality in its establishment. Since reality is boundless, so accordingly is the atom. In each atom, the universe is seen. This is the freedom in all fields. The center of the periphery is circumference. People say everything in just talk, and they don't have no idea what things mean. Everything is ways with words, people run in their mouths. Yet they also say that stories and images just come, in the mode of things that just happen. Talk follows along in the wake of events, searching for the noticeable and the signifying. What begins as an automatic chronicling of things that happen ends arrested by accidents that have the force of fate behind them. Remember, then, the tense rhythm of restless action and scanning, followed by moments of just setting to make something of things. How people out roaming the hills come across places that remember. Picture how the space of desire in such a place could grow at once tactile and imaginary, at once pressingly real and insubstantial. Imagine the need to remember through the constant repetition of images, fixed, condensed, studied on, and made visceral, the need to watch, to chronicle, to make something of things, the attachment to things that matter, the fascination with objects on which the mind can stare itself out.